you've already talked about the fact that you wrote about the technical details of the technology that was developed and some of the narrative stories of what happened in Los Alamos in the development of the bomb. What do you think the public, information from that book that you think the public still doesn't understand correctly about your research in your book, or just key insights that are not widely distributed from your research that you think, if there is anything that comes to mind, might be helpful for people to know or to keep in mind in modern times?
Well, I think what the most important and central thing that people, certainly governments, still don't seem to understand is that, on the one hand, the introduction of nuclear weapons, vastly destructive weapons, particularly when we got to hydrogen bombs, made arbitrarily large, really put an end to world-scale war. There have been no world-scale wars. I mean, we think that Putin is involved today in a world war, but it's not really a world war. Not a World War II. When I was a boy, was growing up, I was 8 years old in 1945, and I remember World War II vividly. The whole world was convulsed. Everything changed for those 4 or 5 years. That's the good side. But the other side is we continually are at risk of the destruction of the entire human world because we have not moved beyond this primitive notion that if we have a lot of bombs and the other guy has a lot of bombs, neither side will use the bombs. Putin has just made clear something that originally was developed as an idea by the Indians and the Pakistanis in the late 90s, that one way you can use nuclear weapons as a threat, contrary to the whole deterrent idea, which is neither side's going to start a war because nuclear, both sides are committing suicide, essentially. That this new notion that Putin is playing with, and it's pretty terrifying, is if I have nuclear weapons, then I can go ahead and fight a conventional war because my enemy isn't going to attack me with nuclear weapons. Therefore, nuclear weapons, in Putin's point of view, made the world safe for conventional war, not world war. If it got to that point, as we're very clear, I think, these days, it would go nuclear. And no one wants to do that, not even Putin, I don't think. I'm not sure. But the fact that both sides have nuclear weapons, in a way, locks them into conventional fighting. And that's a terrifying fact. And that's what we're seeing right now in Ukraine. Putin clearly felt he could make that move, partly because he misunderstood the Ukrainian people and thought somehow they were going to join the party. Quite literally, actually, now that I think of it. But in addition to that, he felt people would back off from any large-scale participation. And we have. We haven't actually gone to war yet. And I don't think we will, we, the United States, directly. But there is this new and terrifying factor that has to do with the fundamental truth that as long as there are nuclear weapons in the world, the odds of their eventually being used are very high. From accident, from subversion, from who knows what. And the answer to that, I think, is very clear. And that's in the book as well. It's in the next book. It's in Dark Sun, my sequel to The Making of the Atomic Bomb. And it was developed by Robert Oppenheimer on a committee of industrialists working in something called the Acheson-Lilienthal Commission in 1946, which is, how do you have a world where people know how to build nuclear weapons, but you somehow get rid of the weapons? And the answer really is, it's as simple as thinking of how long does it take to deliver a given set of weapons? Right now, delivery time is 30 minutes after a decision, and less than that in Europe and Russia. If you take those weapons apart and move the parts 10 miles away from each other, delivery time suddenly becomes a couple of hours. If you dismantle the weapons and put them in a warehouse, delivery time may go to 6 months, buying you time to do whatever else is possible, negotiate, diplomacy, even a conventional war if necessary, before either side can assemble their weapons again and use them. So there is a way actually to have a deterrent world without the additional threat of an accidental or whatever use of the weapons immediately because someone misunderstood a signal. And that, I think, people don't really understand yet.
Yeah.
And it has not been to the advantage of nation states to take that position. No one has really worked that hard at it. You recall that Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize and gave a great speech about just this issue. But it all fell away in the fact that a lot of the difficulty with getting control of nuclear weapons is domestic politics between Democrats and Republicans in our country. And until that's resolved in some way, I don't know that we're going to get very far. So that's the real, I think, deep message of that book.